Right, what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Chat Shit Get Cancelled podcast. Luckily, we've made it here. I booked the wrong date. I lost my phone last week, and I've had an absolute shocker. So I don't know about you. I don't like to make people intro themselves, so
Sure.
I'm gonna try intro you, and then you fix me, right?
Okay,
So,
drum roll.
yeah, give me a drum
Here we
roll.
go.
So today we've got Dr. Yusef Smith. Do you still go by Doctor?
Just for the gram.
Yeah, just right. Okay. So we've got Dr. Yusef Smith, who has been a doctor in the past, recently have left NHS. He's a fitness owner or co-owner of Propane Fitness. He's also a power lifter, a gymnast or some sort of spinny shit. Don't know what the fuck it is. And then also someone who's managed to keep their girlfriend after sleeping on the floor for 4 months.
That's a really great summary.
I couldn't fit anything else in.
Great stuff, man. Yeah.
Anything else?
I couldn't do a better job myself. I do wonder, at what point are you no longer allowed to call yourself doctor? Like when?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
It's been 6 months since I've seen a patient. So
you're still fine.
when do I get rusty enough to be like, oh,
10 years, I think.
fine.
Yeah, give you
Okay.
10 years.
Got 9.5 left.
Yeah. So
Interesting you lost your phone. As I noticed that you are living with balls on the line, just naked phone. Very impressive. You got no no case.
yeah, because I need to get a case for it, mate. I shelled out 11.50 for a new phone. That's hard to take, man.
Yeah.
No matter how much money you have, that's fucking disgusting.
Whoa.
And I tried
Yeah.
to do, so I had some palaver trying to get it. Like I had to get my replacement SIM, and then I had no money in my actual current account because you need a verification code, and it was all in my savings account. So I got 2 accounts. I had to actually go to the bank, and they were like, "Can you prove who you are?" And I was like, "I'm fucking here."
Like
what do you want?
our generation, like going to the bank's like a once in a decade thing.
Yeah, I don't even know what you do.
Like, do I stand over there and what?
The guy's like, "Come on through," and I'm like, "What am I meant to say?"
Can I check your ID? And you like look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, that's me. Like,
It's such a strange experience, and then cause COVID as well, nobody wants you anywhere near anything. But when you lose your phone, you realize you can't do anything. Like you need a verification code for anything, like literally everything. I'm surprised if you can book an Uber without a verification code.
I feel like the navigation muscle is completely atrophied in me as well. Like I used to, 10 years ago, I would drive following signs. Now, like, I mean, even getting here, 5-minute walk, and I had to like follow the map like this.
I was trying to get to the airport in Spain on my last day, and I was like looking around. I was like, "Well, I don't speak Spanish." And I was like looking at taxi drivers, like "Aeropuerto."
Yeah,
like, what do I do?
So vulnerable.
Yeah, it's horrible, especially in another country. And then I couldn't get my boarding pass, and she was like, "You're gonna have to pay 30 quid." I was like, "My phone got stolen. Like, I've no way of getting it." She was like, "Just download the app," and I'm like, what did I just say to you? And then I ended up like downloading it on my laptop, and I just showed her. I was like, "Just take that," and she ended up just eventually giving me it. I was like, "Fuck you." So hard.
Yeah, so there's I can't remember what it's called, the something challenge, where you're just dropped into a random city in the world, particularly one that doesn't speak English, with no cash or anything, and it's like, right, off you go.
If that's somewhere that's not like Spain or France or Germany where they don't speak good English.
If it's like Marrakesh,
yeah,
what do you do? Yeah,
or like Russia or anywhere like that.
Awful.
Right, so I had an agenda with this podcast because I thought that you'd recently left. The thing that happened is your TikTok popped up of you talking about leaving the NHS, and I was like, okay, that's brand new. And then I realized,
yeah, it was just a
not.
repost, filthy repost.
Yeah, and then I went to go on like podcasts just to search you, and realized you're a podcast slut. Realized you've been around, told the story, so I had to change what the actual agenda was. Why did you leave the NHS? Just briefly cover it. Repeat yourself for the next 5 minutes.
In brief, we started Propane in 2008, 2009. That was just a bit of fun, passion project. It's sounding board for us to just put our ideas on the internet. And it wasn't really until a couple of years later where we got the occasional organic inquiry of people asking, "Oh, can you help me with coaching?" We were like, "Oh, can we do that?" Okay, well, it's £7.99, and that's our coaching plan. Yeah, well, that was just like lifetime. So we had no idea about this stuff. Eventually, we learned to start doing recurring plans and group training and scaled the business. And it wasn't really until I was already midway through my medical training while we set up Propane, I was working in an investment bank. Um, Felt like I should have been doing medicine all along. Quit that halfway through medical training. Then Propane started to become a bit
Hmm.
more profitable. By that point, Johnny quit his job as an accountant. And then I was in the position where I'm like, well, I'm already more than halfway through medical training now. I should really just finish it and then make a decision. And then when you finish, you've got 2 years of kind of pre-specialty training where you're doing surgical and medical jobs. So you're like, right, well, I'll finish that and then I'll go full-time Propane. So the decision was kind of made for me already,
Yeah.
but there are record numbers of people leaving at the minute. Like morale is at an all-time low
I
with,
don't think it helped with the whole vaccine thing, did it?
oh yeah, I don't know if you saw, there was a ITU doctor who was refusing to take the vaccine.
Is that the one with the videos? And then there was that some sort of health minister was in and he was talking to him?
Yeah, so
Yeah, I
Sajid
remember
Javid
that.
was in there and he was asking people, and this guy can move.
That's the Tory MP, isn't it?
He was the Matt Hancock replacement.
Did he just resign yesterday?
Oh, probably everyone's
Yeah,
gone, mate.
I
Yeah,
think he resigned yesterday. And then yeah, so that like took morale down a lot.
it did. I think it was everybody who works in the NHS very much felt this like mismatch between clap for the NHS, like, oh, we're so appreciative of
Yeah.
the work you do, sweet, but I can't pay for my groceries and claps. Like, I'd much prefer a pay rise rather
Yeah.
than a real terms pay cut
Yeah,
every
yeah,
year. And
yeah.
like nurses and healthcare assistants and physios, and they're the ones that get the worst of it, because nurses haven't had a pay cut in haven't had a pay rise in years, and the hours, the workload they do, the lack of respect. I'm so impressed with how resilient they are.
Yeah. Like I always say to people, and I've got a few clients like this, and I talk to them about it all the time. Like the hardest person to coach is probably like a night shift nurse or one that's switching shifts. It's like their lifestyle is made to not let them make progress in
Oh man,
fitness.
I've got some photos of me. So I was training throughout my foundation years as a doctor, but I just got gradually smaller and fatter, and I'm convinced it's because, yeah, constant circadian disruption. So you
Were you on the split shifts?
always, yeah,
Mhm.
like sometimes 60, 70 hour weeks, and it's like it's the shifting between day and night that gets you. And so obviously your serum cortisol is like 9,000.
Yeah.
You're living on Quality Street on the wards, and
Yeah.
the hospital canteen is
A
extortionately
slush.
expensive, and yeah, just not
Slush.
great food. And I remember thinking, like, there's definitely people who work in this hospital who are basically breaking even on their job by the time they've paid for parking and lunch at the work. So
And then the stress and like,
yeah, that's a big, and one of the big reasons from the people who have been able to get over the sense of opportunity cost, sunk cost, and Stockholm syndrome, really, of
I've never heard it describe the Stockholm
um,
syndrome.
that's maybe a bit strong, but that they've recognized that, particularly as a doctor, as a nurse, that it requires an immense amount of consistency, grit, time, energy, talent, academic grades, intelligence, and all of that. If it was applied into a different sector, in the private sector, the return on your time and investment would be so much higher.
Yeah. How much do you have an idea of how it's ran? Like how much do you know specifically like who's making the bigger decisions and stuff? Because it does feel like from the top they're literally like trying to make it worse. Like if you deal with the NHS, it's like they're actively trying to make bad decisions. That's what it feels like.
I don't know much about the higher management, but there's very much, because of this set of characteristics that I've mentioned, and people who work in this industry they're doing it out of, a lot of it's goodwill. It's held together by goodwill, and so a lot of broken systems and inefficient things are kind of just held together because we just need to, the patients at the end of this, and we don't want them to suffer. So what ends up happening is, yes, it just about masking tapes it together, but we lose the feedback loop of, hey, can I just flag up this is a broken system,
Yeah.
and we're all wasting time, like faxing this breast cancer referral to the local florist by accident because there's a misprint on the thing, and that they don't have an email address, and that,
Yeah.
or if you're using like Windows XP and you're prescribing a drug and there's 10 clicks, let's say, to get through to the next page,
Yeah.
and there's a prompt that comes up, and that there's a delay on that, and all these little things, even if it's a 5 or a 10 second delay at each point, obviously that's magnified by the number of drugs that are prescribed in a day, multiplied
Yeah.
by the number of people prescribing drugs. So these little user interface things, although it sounds like I'm being really petty, I think they add up so much.
No,
in
but
the
I can
course of,
imagine
like,
being in your shoes when your full fitness business is about eliminating all this stuff as personal trainers. Like you spend all day thinking about systems and like ways to make things easier for fitness professionals, and then you're
yeah.
dealing with that.
So that's maybe why I've got a particularly low threshold for it, because it's like I come home after a 12, 13-hour shift, open laptop, start job number 2, and go from like using a Windows PC with a broken mouse or a keyboard that has a few keys missing and stuff, to opening like an M1 MacBook Pro, and any systems or things that are slow, we can just be, we'll just switch to a different process.
We'll just find a different app.
Exactly. So maybe it's because of that's what kind of like trying to pedal harder and not being able to do it. It was so frustrating.
I got an insight into the NHS when I fucked up. Well, I didn't fuck up my vaccine. I couldn't get my vaccine passport because my doctor's was registered in Scotland, and I got 2 walk-ins in London, and it was the most pain I've ever went through in my whole entire life.
What,
it was like
dealing with the admin.
Nobody knew anything. Like every department would just send you somewhere else, and then they would send you back. And I literally had, so I know I could literally find my notes. I had like a full notes thing of like every system that like the doctors had, and then the people at NHS Inform had, and then I had case numbers and all that. And see, because I'd worked in call centres, I knew that my case number wasn't getting fixed because they were giving me the same chat I used to give someone when I knew it wasn't getting fixed. They were like,
So
yeah, it could be like a week, but we're not sure because it then has to go for this guy. And I'm like, that means you're not getting it. Because and when I worked in a call centre, we worked with stocks. So it was like a share registry. So when we had a problem, say that someone's shares never got moved over or something, I'll just say his name. His name was Christian, right? And he used to come in a Barcelona top and chinos. And we used to have to send our case number, so stuff that we weren't allowed to fix. And it'd be something as simple as like an address, that would like the street was spelt wrong, but we could easily fix it. But we had to send it to him. And as soon as I sent it to him, I could look at him like 3 rows down. And I'd be like, he's never fixing that. And then he would send it back going, that's fixed. And I'd be like, no, it's not. And then I'd have the person shouting at me again. And I'd be like another week, and I could just literally stand up, go to his computer, fix it for them, and then go back. But you couldn't because you've got some guy that won't fix it.
Process.
But that's what it was like with my vaccine, because it was NHS Inform, so everyone would send you there, but they were literally just people in a call centre that hadn't worked in a hospital before, or a doctor's.
They've just been tendered out, and this is another kind of problem from a data perspective, that because each trust, each kind of area within the UK that is kind of run as a separate organisation.
Yeah.
And so the idea of a national health service, like, it's very possible for you to be transferred from one hospital to another one 5 miles down the road, and for none of your patient notes to be available, or for them to be digital on this hospital and physical on the next one. And it boggles my mind from a data management perspective why this happens. But I've spoken to a few people in health tech, and they're saying about like how, because of the incentives, it's each of these projects and systems are tendered out to different companies that make bids for them, and that's why there's so much wastage, because things get paid over the odds for it. But there's no integration of the systems, and you're thinking, surely it would be cheaper long term to have
to do it all
everything
in-house
on one database. But now at this point, like the upheaval required to do it, people are just like, oh well, let's just like leave it as it is.
But it just makes, because you must spend like so much time dealing with all those shit problems.
That's it. Like, I think people don't see that because it's a blind spot to how much human time is being wasted. So if you come on to a ward and there's 3 computers with one has a broken S on the keyboard, one has a broken K, and my name's got an S in, so I can't log into that computer. Or you print out a blood sticker.
Is that a genuine thing?
Well,
is that happened?
Yeah. So like, or
that's a real life story.
You know, so like, let's say there's 12 doctors on shift.
That was your last day, was it? Fuck this.
Like, right, I've had enough. Like, there's 12 doctors on the A&E department, and there's 8 computers available. Yeah. And then you print out a blood sticker, and it might go to any one of the random printers in the department. So you're like listening out for the sound of like and you can't hear it.
Do you think it's just that much of a monstrous job to try go in there and fix it, and it needs a full team on like 2 years of like going in and really just fixing all the nooks and crannies,
So
and they're just like, fuck it.
this is a good question. So yeah, from a execution perspective, it's huge. But what they tend to do is they get PricewaterhouseCoopers or Ernst & Young to come in, and they pay them 7 or 8 grand a day to make slideshows and about vision and narrative and say like, oh, this is what you guys need to do. The clinicians know what needs to be improved. It's not a case
They've
of
no
lack
way
of
of
awareness.
fixing all the problems.
Yeah, like what I think, and the problem is people will be averse to this idea, but normally rational economic agents respond to incentives in a free market structure. And so if you incentivize clinicians and you say, right, you will get a bonus if you can fix this process, or if you can. There's a guy called Josh Case who he's an Australian junior doctor who's recently quit as well, and he's now just doing coding full time. He was working on a surgical job, and there was just a little process in his day which was pulling data from the theatre list database and entering it into the daily handover sheet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically finding lines in the database, patient name, like left breast, mastectomy, admission date, etc., and just pulling in that data. And it usually required someone to log in 30 minutes early before the start of their shift and like type in the thing into a spreadsheet or a Word document. And he wrote a script that just pulled the data automatically, obviously saving time and eliminating human error. Because if you type left breast and it's actually the right breast, like that's a
So let's go back to front tits.
Oh yeah, it's a potential really serious problem. So he did that, and he said it took him about 8 months of going back and forth with IT and the red tape to get this script implemented.
That was something that could save you like hours and hours of time.
So it saved his trust 400 grand a year based on the number of man hours required to do that. And he said like it was the fact that it was the actual bit of code was so simple, but it was the behemoth that you're having
you
to
need to go through like 10 people to get it fixed.
Yeah.
That would infuriate me. Just even that, I think it was about 4 weeks of constantly phoning and going around all these different departments, losing my mind on. I just turned to Instagram and lost my mind.
Oh
and
man,
like, I had like 200 people just like following my stories.
just seeing like where you can go with it.
I went live on TikTok one day and I put a halo light around my head and turned it on and just lost my mind for like 2 hours. And I had loads of nurses coming in and like giving me advice, and I was like, I told them that there was a sin bin corner. So like the nurse would come on and go, just wait until passports aren't a thing. And I was like, sin bin. It's like, Sally, you can come out in 10 minutes. If you say anything like that again, you'll get another.
You're on timeout, Sally.
You'll get a red card. You'll be straight out.
I've met people in health tech who, luckily, some really smart people, and I hope that. I'm hopeful.
I met a lot of, through that. I met a lot of people from the NHS that were sound. Like I love people who work for the NHS. I just think from the top, it's fucked.
It's kind of broken, and you can hire smarter and more driven people to try and do the frontline stuff. But if this feedback loop is broken, so this guy he's part of a kind of movement called Public Money, Public Code, which when you think about it, totally makes sense. He was like, why have we got closed source applications that are separately being tendered out for to manage something which is funded with public money? Like if we have an open source system that everyone contributes to, the same way that any like a lot, WordPress is open source, and that's become 30% of the internet. There's so much potential in that, and it's getting the big guys on board with it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I wasn't expecting to go down that rabbit hole. I was expecting
to
clean that for 2 minutes.
You got me on my hobby horse. And,
you sound as if you were loving it. So what was your actual job? Because you get GPs and you get doctors in hospitals and stuff. What were you mainly doing?
Briefly, the way it works is when you finish med school, you work as a general hospital doctor for 2 years, and then you do specialty training. So I worked along sort of surgery and dermatology, A&E, acute medicine. You just kind of get chucked around.
Fired around like a little slut, yeah. So do you have much knowledge of like how because this is generally what I wanted to speak about, because I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of the NHS too much, because I can literally rant for ages about just because that one horrible experience, and I don't want to do that because people on this podcast have heard it before. But do you know what the protocol is if someone has any, like say they're got a diabetes or anything that is being really affected by being obese? What is the protocol that someone who is a doctor would be giving them? and how much resources do they actually have to help someone who's obese?
That's a good question.
Mm.
So how much support is there available for?
Yeah, and what is like what's the protocols?
Mm, so it depends on
Like, have
the.
you experienced that? Do you get put in that sort of?
I have, so I've done a GP job where I've had someone who I've had a few patients who have come in, they're obese, and they're saying, "Look, I want help. I want to start doing something about it." Sometimes it's first stage, I'm looking to improve my lifestyle, and I've tried multiple things and it's not working. Sometimes it's I want gastric band surgery, and if it's the latter, then there's a bunch of things that they have to hoops they have to jump through to be able to be eligible for it, and certain disqualifying conditions and
Yeah.
criteria. It depends on the practice. It depends if there is a team available. Sometimes they have a really good team with us, like they have a practice nurse and a physiotherapist and exercise referral person and psychologist and all that stuff. But it's very much depends on how the practice is run.
Hmm.
GP practices are kind of run as like semi-private things where they have a bit more autonomy over like what team members they take on.
Right.
Um,
So in a GP practice, they do their own hiring.
Sort of,
Right.
yeah. There's incentive structures for it. I wouldn't say that in terms of how much choice or how effective it's going to be. I'm not sure. Like I've got another hobby horse of that because we are in the fitness industry effectively, and then I've kind of had a window into the medical sector, and yet both of them are huge. Both of them solve different problems, but there's not really a clean integration between the two.
Yeah.
And
You'd think there'd be a segue, wouldn't you?
yeah, it makes sense that if there was some kind of referral pathway
Hmm.
of um of PTs and trade, like, yeah, yes, I know you can do like a GP referral qualification as a PT, but it's not really a mainstream thing.
I can't imagine anyone going through that though. Like, no one knows about it.
In reality, yeah,
Yeah. I can't imagine anyone going to get referred to this PT from a GP.
this is it.
That
And
does have a ring to it though.
yeah, it does. And people rag on GPs because they're like, oh, they don't care. They just I only had 7 minutes with them, and they just told me that, like,
That much do your head in.
it does, because having been on the other side of it, you've only got 7 to 10 minutes, and you've got a massive patient load. You haven't got a chance or time to really dig into anything. And if you have someone who wants to make a lifestyle change, they'll find a way. They'll do it on their own.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a very, especially on Twitter, there's a very kind of American um, view of doctors that they're just sponsored pill pushers, and they don't care about lifestyle change. And I think it's just because you have someone who comes in, if you say, like, I think you should stop smoking, how, like, unless it's an incredible sales pitch, you're not really going to be able to get someone to make a fundamental lifestyle change in that short
I
time.
always try to tell people this as well, like even before they come on, because I do everything I can to like not disqualify, but like I don't. I hate taking on people that aren't serious about like changing because they won't
Mm.
do it. So no, like even if they're just like they might have had like a week where they're just like I'm gonna do this, and you're like, are you though? Like, are you actually gonna do it? Because if you're not fully committed to it, like you've not like. So I give them like 3 or 4 chances to be like,
This is people who pay you.
yeah, what
Yeah.
are like they're willing to come, they're gonna come on. Because I don't
Okay.
have that much space, so I want to take on people that are serious about it. Because you do find you get a lot of people that have maybe just had a week of motivation. They're like, right, I'm gonna do it, and then I'm like, are you actually serious about definitely committing? Because you can't convince someone to do something they've no obligation or they're not really committed to doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a big one, that because healthcare is free at the point of service, the incentive structure is a bit different, and I'm not blaming people for not having an intrinsic motivation for this stuff. I think it's a rare and great thing to have. But if someone actively seeks you out and pays for your service and they want a result, they've already done half the battle, haven't they?
Yeah,
They've already achieved the point of, like, saying, right, I'm going to do this, and I've put my money where my mouth is. I've committed financially. I'm accountable to someone. But without that, it's it's a lot to expect someone
yeah,
to just kind of, yeah. So it's a different set of motivation structures that you see from a patient versus a client, and
yeah.
so
I get
that's
what you mean.
yeah.
Just someone that comes at you as a potential client is going to be way more willing to put in the effort than someone who's free for the NHS that just wants my help.
Yeah, and we've all had the client who signs up, "Hey, Gavin, I'm interested in, I want to gain a bit of muscle. I want to lose some fat." And you go, "Okay, here's your program. You just check in once a week."
And never hear from them
You
ever
don't hear from
again.
them, and 12 weeks later, they send you a photo, and they're just absolutely jacked, and you're just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you've been following the program?" They're like, "Well, yeah."
Well,
Like,
you get the odd person, you get those ones, and then you get ones that just like you never hear from ever again.
and that's it. They're
I've
just
People find this well surprising, but I'm like, yeah, like once every 3 months I'll take on someone, they'll pay me, and they'll never talk to me ever again. Like I'm pretty sure they'll block me just because they don't, just because don't want to go through like the guilt.
Well, that's interesting, and I've been wanting to ask you about this stuff as well because I think you're someone who has really been there and bought the
Yeah,
t-shirt in terms of doing this. And you've been overweight yourself. You've lived an extreme lifestyle on the opposite side,
yeah,
and because I another hobby horse is I feel like the fitness industry, they don't have much compassion for obese people, and
yeah,
it's very much put on them as a lack of willpower or laziness or whatever. And unfortunately, the data suggests this as well, that if we give people pictures of lean people and pictures of obese people, generally participants will ascribe characteristics to the lean people and to the obese
lazy,
people. Yeah, the
motivated.
lean people, they say that they're more gregarious, more affluent, more happy, more intelligent, and the obese people, the opposite, say they're more lazy, they're less intelligent, etc. So people, there is an inherent judgment, and that just compounds the self image
Yeah,
that people have. Plus, we I think we discussed this a while ago about someone who is obese is much more likely to have been sexually abused as a child. There's a really high
yeah,
carryover with this. There's also the ACE index, the Adverse Childhood Experience Score, which is a set of questions of things like, did you ever see your dad hit your mum as a child? Were you ever touched inappropriately by a relative? Like, did you ever go hungry as a child? All these kind of things. And these correlate, they map onto long-term adult conditions like
yeah.
COPD and
It's like a lot.
diabetes and liver
People
liver
forget
disease.
that food's just a coping mechanism, the same way that drugs, alcohol, gambling, and stuff is. A lot of the time, it's a coping mechanism. I often think about why I was fat when I was younger, and I do think a lot of it was to do with my upbringing. But you don't want to get into that sort of. I don't want to fall into the trap of like this day and age where everyone does attach to something quite easily.
Yeah,
So I don't want to do that as well because I think we're like you always like have one extreme and then I feel like we're going all the way up to the other extreme. And when I make content, I want like I'm nowadays I'm really trying to find the balance because see when I make content, I'm literally thinking what will help people the most. That's the way I come at all my videos. It's not like
mm,
what will get me clients or whatever. It's like if I say something, what will actually help people the most. So I went to the other extreme. I made like videos about how PTs need to have more compassion for fat people and then like all the outliers of why people get fat. But then I got a lot of people that will always just pity themselves and they'll never do anything as well. So I wasn't
I
actually
see.
helping them. I was just giving them something
Some
to,
validation.
yeah.
It's the nature of
So
social
it's
media,
like
though,
the
isn't it? Like
balance is so hard.
when I posted that thread about quitting the NHS, a lot of the shares were just like, "Look, Boris, look what you've done. Look at this
If
lovely
I
young."
seen that after my vaccine thing, I'd have been fucking like,
Oh,
in the streets with holding it up.
it was like this lovely young man has left the
Yeah.
career because of you, and people use it as a way to like that's their pitchfork.
You can imagine you in Westminster, people with your tweet up.
You know what? Like because it supports their view and it validates it. So you're absolutely right that things vacillate between these two extremes.
Yeah.
And yeah, for sure, like a lot of the etiology of obesity, it's a bit heavy for TikTok. So
Yeah, you can't get too into much detail. I think when I look back of when I was because I was fat, say from I think I started putting on weight when I was genuinely like 7, and then I can't remember ever not being fat until I was like 17, 18. I think when I was like maybe 13 to like 16, it was really bad. Like I was maybe like 15 stone when I was like 5 foot fucking 6 or whatever,
right.
which is pretty heavy. Like if you think about the fat people in your school, I would have been that's what I would have, like when you were going through school, I'd have been one of the people who go, right, he's pretty chunky. Like
Okay.
that. I was that sort of level. And I always think, because so my mum has like really bad mental health, like really bad. And throughout my childhood, I would say I'd have had to have done a lot more than the average person just on my own. So my mum's got really bad rheumatoid arthritis as well. So
Horrible
towards
disease.
yeah, oh horrendous. Towards maybe like 13, she got that. So she had like replacement ankles and stuff. So I had to do a lot of stuff on my own. That then she suffers from really bad like mental health. So just like random things like say if I asked her to sit, like I was well into football. That's all I done. That's all I cared about. Even when I was fat, I was like just sure I was like a centre half that just went for everyone, but like, couldn't catch anyone. And then so she would do random things like I would have to have my contract signed for the first game of the season, and she wouldn't sign it. And then she would say she would do it, and then I would get to the day of the game, and the contract would be gone, and she wouldn't know where it was. So her head,
That is painful.
She's like she's always constantly tired, and I'm pretty sure she's got some sort of condition, but she'll never go get it figured out. So she said like moments of psychosis and stuff where she thinks people's falling her and stuff. So I think a lot of me eating was to do with coping with that. I think I just was bored and also just probably didn't get the attention the other kids got.
It's interesting to hear that as well. That if this story of the contract, because
That still sits in my head.
that's a real killer, yeah. And
Still thinking about it. I couldn't play the first game of the season.
I'm not surprised, and I can see why that you've been drawn into a career that empowers other people now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, right, I'm not gonna let that happen to other people. I'm gonna help bring them up. So
yeah, definitely. So I would say that, and also I don't know much of the data, but there's definitely a lot of PTs don't take it into consideration. There's like I have a bigger appetite than other people, like 100%. Like I have a hard time. See, even if I was to lose 5 kilos over the next 6 weeks, I'll be hungry 5 days into being on like the lowest deficit I can be in, with the most amount of protein, with every choice being good. I'll be hungry, like honestly. And people go, "You can't be hungry." I'm like, no, but I am. Like I'm not lying.
Yeah, it's this hunger and pain is subjective emotions, and I'm fascinated by hunger. Like I've written a long piece on it. I think it is the key determinant of success in a diet, and not just how hungry you are, but how you deal with that, and how you whether you perceive that to be a threat to your existence, or whether you're just like, there's a sensation, there's hunger. Because as you know, the difference in BMR between the 5th percentile and the 95th percentile of humanity is something like 600 calories. Like it's not massive, you know.
Yeah.
And so people who are claiming, oh, I've got a broken metabolism, or you've seen Secret Eaters, like these shows where there was a woman who claimed that she was eating 1,300 calories a day, and she was actually, when they tracked her, she was eating 4,700. Like huge difference. And so people I'm much more willing to believe someone is deluding themselves or mistracking or whatever, even through an honest mistake, than they have a broken metabolism. Yes, I would check their thyroid function. Yeah, okay, but like, what's more likely? Mistracking. So, and I know that's a big thing that you talk about in your content of like, just be honest with yourself.
Just like stop bullshit. Because until you've tracked your food, you've no idea what you're consuming.
Absolutely.
You actually you haven't a clue.
I should also say, because sometimes when I say this stuff, people think I'm being fat phobic. It's the opposite. Like it's empowering. It's amazing to know, like, when I track the data, I realize I'm not broken.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's like the ball is back in my court again. And then it becomes, right, how much can I improve my tolerance of hunger? How much can I like adjust the food density, the calorie density of my foods, and all that other stuff too?
It's just, there's definitely going to be, some people are going to find it harder than others. Like some people will find being in a deficit not that difficult. Some people will find it more difficult. But I always say this as well, I think I get hungrier, and I definitely genetics play into like the gym as well. I think my strength doesn't increase as quick as like maybe someone who's been following the same program as me. But I've used it as a way to learn, like to know more than people that are getting stronger faster than me. Because now since I've known way more, like I am getting stronger quicker because I'm training more efficiently.
It's the classic thing of when you see an influencer who's just always been in amazing shape and great genetics and everything. It's like, well, okay, but can they replicate that with a client, or are they just a genetic freak?
I think if you've got a disadvantage in terms of those things, you learn more.
Yeah, definitely.
If you're willing to learn, obviously.
It's an interesting one about like, would you hire a marriage counselor who's been divorced 10 times? Well, probably if their final marriage has lasted 20 years, you know, and they've fixed all
Because
the
of
problems in
nine times I've made mistakes. Because like you guys, you always talk about all your fitness mistakes.
Oh,
Not
so many
fitness mistakes
blunders.
and business mistakes. You
Yeah.
always talk about them. Like what's the stupidest thing you've done in terms of dieting or the gym? Because I know you've done some stupid shit. And do you know what I wanted to ask as well? Because I couldn't find it. I'm so happy that I found tell me 3 footballers that you know.
David Seaman, Ryan Giggs,
Ryan Giggs.
and Del Piero.
Do you know any Scottish footballers?
I do, but that's because I worked with him.
Who?
A guy called Damiano Agostini.
He sounds well Scottish. Where's he from? Easterhouse?
Falkirk, actually.
Where?
Falkirk.
Fuck. So what? Yeah, because I was looking for, because you've done some mad things. What was the thing where you went to like you used to put your head underwater or something?
Yeah. So I read that, right, just for you guys, because nowadays information is abundant on what is correct and what's not on the internet, and you can search on YouTube and you can find someone that's quite reasonable that goes through the data. When we were starting off, it was the Wild West, and you know, the information on there, you'd see some like T Nation article that claims like steroidal gains on something. You're like, oh sweet, I'm going to do this, program it. So, you know, we've all come to the point where like information has now synthesized to a point where someone starting now, you know what to do. So that's just a bit of a caveat, so that I don't look like a total idiot. But I read this article that was talking about proven ways to increase your IQ, and one of them was saying that
you Google this.
I think so. I must have like, it was when I was like maybe 13, 14 years old, and it was saying that hypoxia over time, like bouts of hypoxia, can increase the surface area of your carotid arteries and improve blood flow to the brain. Therefore, if you hold yourself underwater for an hour a day in total, like total volume, for 3 weeks, that you can increase it by like 5 to 10%. And so I just went to the swimming pool every day for 2 weeks and just like sat next to the stairs and just held myself underwater with a watch. And I think I got kicked out of one pool because the lifeguard was like, "Oh, what you doing there, son?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm actually doing this protocol to increase the surface area of my carotid." And he was like, "Oh no, you can't do that in here, like no, you've got." So I had to go to a different pool, continue the experiment. I mean, there's so many.
Is that why you went into medicine?
Oh yeah. Well, right, I'm sick of these internet articles. There's so many of them. I should really document them because a lot of them are pretty stupid.
Where I heard you saying that was life hacks, I think.
Well remembered, yeah.
Yeah, but so I watched a load of them during lockdown. Do you want to hear something funny? I met Chris Williamson at the IFS, and I was about 12 pints deep when I met him. And as I don't know if you've seen Aaron Martin. He's Don't Be a Dick. No. So he's quite big on like TikTok and stuff. He's like one of my best mates, but he was standing with me anyway. And Chris was talking to us. And one of my mates was on Love Island the year before. Right. Or like, so he was fresh on it. And he's a bit eccentric. And he's like, he's got a PhD. So he was like trying to have these conversations with girls and stuff. And he was trying to come across, well, he wasn't trying to come across smart. He was just smarter than everyone in there. And I was like to Chris, I was like, my mate's just on Love Island. He's a bit of a virgin like you. And he went to me, you just call me a virgin? And I was like, I think so. It's like, I've had a lot to drink.
I can't imagine Chris taking that well. He scores high on disagreeableness, but I think that's...
No, he knew that I never meant it.
Okay, fine.
But he did fuck off instantly after.
It's all right, bye. But he does, he mentioned that on being on Love Island that... I
thought you were going to say mention that in the podcast. This guy called me a virgin.
Oh, no. That he was like hooked up to the microphones and that there was 2 guys just plugged into everything he said for 6 weeks. Yeah. And he was like, oh God, like they came up to him at the end and they were like, oh, like we've got some book recommendations from you and we've been listening to it. And he's like, this is weird that someone has been like plugged into me for 6 weeks.
It's like knowing all your thoughts because everyone you speak, like nobody can see all your conversations.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I'll have a very, very, very different conversation with you compared to my dad.
Yeah.
About football.
I I'd be like, oh,
He's
that
like,
guy in
this guy
centre
knows Del
midfield."
Piero.
One of the OGs. But yeah, I can imagine your friend and Chris. He said he felt like a bit of a space cadet on Love Island
Yeah.
because he just wasn't really connecting with people while he was there.
And they don't want to connect with you, really, do they? They just-
Apparently, the producers are like kind of goading you, like they're probably like, "All right, go and say that to her and like stir some shit with her," and it's all it's creating the drama, isn't it?
Well, the guy that I know is called Brett, and he's got a twin brother that looks the exact same as him. And one of the funniest experiences I've had in my life is I met his brother Scott a week after the show had finished in London, and I mean he's the spittle of him, like they're identical twins. And he just had like 2 hours of 15-year-old girls shouting Brett at him when he's named Scott.
Oh,
He's like, I can't go fucking Asda without getting hauled. And he's just shouting back at everyone, I'm fucking Scott.
do you get? In fact, I've just remembered something.
Jesus, what's this?
This is unrelated, but I've just before I forget. Do you get recognised in the street?
In Glasgow,
a bit of a big deal now.
Fuck off. I cringe so much, just shit like that. Like, I actually hate it. In Glasgow a little bit, you can see people staring at you. Like, if you drink, like, they'll come up to you. If you don't, like, they'll just message you saying you.
Really?
I was like, all right, you're the person staring at me. I was going to say the little boy staring at me. I was like, those little fast-food fans.
Because I got recognised yesterday.
Did you?
While I was getting this for you as a
No way. What's this?
not
Try to make me fat again.
It's not a very fitness present, but I just
They look class. Waitrose.
I
You
feel
find a
like-
Waitrose in Glasgow?
yeah.
Did you? That
The
must
person
be
in the
new.
shop was like, "I'm sure I know you from somewhere." It turned out it was from Modern Wisdom, which is kind of annoying because it's like, oh, why couldn't it have been from our own podcast? But
Well, do you get, is it that way most of your people find you? Life hacks.
So Johnny's actually built this like spider's web.
Mate. Yeah, I can't get away from it. It's actually impossible.
Yeah, do not click on any of our adverts because you will just get.
I'm pretty sure somehow Johnny has worked out anyone who watches this, you will be all over their screen from now on.
Yeah.
He's probably coding behind this camera right now.
Honestly, it's so convoluted and impressive. But the thing for the chocolates, there's a bit of a kind of message behind that, which is that when anyone buys me chocolates, I always think like, oh no, they're too fancy. I can't have them myself. I'll give them to someone as a gift. But Gavin, I want you to have those and enjoy them yourself. Oh, lovely.
You want one?
I'm okay. I just brushed my teeth, but
Oh, do you want one? It's because the box is so fancy. You don't want to ruin the box.
well, that's it. But I think really it's an act of self-love to eat some chocolates. That
You think? So everyone that's listening to this, get your chocolates out.
get your chocolates out.
Enjoy one of
So
these.
the other thing is, I made a racist blunder, and I'm very grateful for
Tell me
you
this.
for not highlighting this. But I think I should come clean that.
You said Falkirk wrong. Falkirk.
Oh no. So a few weeks ago, well, a few months ago, you messaged me saying, "Hey Yusef, it'd be great to chat to you on the podcast. The catch is it's in Glasgow, so it would have to be anytime you're in Glasgow." And I was like, "Oh, sweet, okay." And then this thing came up. I'm speaking at the British Association of Dermatologists, and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm coming up to Glasgow, so I'll message that. Who was it? That charismatic, handsome, tall podcaster from Scotland, Colin Cambro, I think." So
I've seen you were on his podcast.
well, that was it. So that's just what the association was in my head. I messaged him and I was like, "Hey, Colin, I'd love to take you up on that offer. I'm in Glasgow."
I'm so different to him. I know who he is. He's like an accountant. Wears a suit and all.
It was one of the, like in your mind, you just like, that was it. It just became merged in my head in a moment of confusion. And so and he was like, "Oh, sweet. Okay. I booked you in for the 7th or for the 8th. And I was like, afterwards, I think
He would get the day right.
and then I saw a message from you. And I was like, "Oh no, it wasn't him." And I've got so I had to extend the trip.
Paul, this guy could not be more different from me.
I will. That will be me tomorrow, Paul. I brought
Is it with How different am I to him? No, I think. Oh.
This is my racism speaking. All you Scottish people look the same to me. So basically, I was like, well, I can't sack off Gavin, the person who actually invited me.
And then you were like, here, I'm still free for that date. What date? I got it wrong.
Oh. So I extended my trip.
Did you?
But you know what? I think we can blame Colin in this because he was just like, "Oh yeah, sweet, I booked you in."
Yeah, I think
like,
it's his fault.
just didn't bat an eyelid at the fact that he hadn't made the offer for me to come up.
So you offered yourself to him. He was like, yeah, sweet. So yeah, I definitely can't take the blame for getting the wrong date if you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
So,
mentioning the wrong
just
person.
racist mistakes.
Imagine I booked that and you'd book the same date with him.
Well, it'd be a bit awkward, wouldn't it? It's like,
So you're doing it in here? Is that in here?
yeah, it's in here.
You're a slut. You are a
I know-
podcast slut.
Well, do you know what? Have you heard? You know Tim Ferriss?
Yeah.
This is completely. He did something about automating his love life. Have you heard about this?
No.
He hired 3 teams of virtual assistants in Philippines, Bangladesh, and Pakistan
I already hate this.
to set up a dating profile, and he did it kind of data driven dating profile of looking at the pictures that perform best on dating profiles. It tends to be if you're topless,
Making
if
an
you're,
algorithm.
yeah, if you're smiling, if you're looking to the left, or if you're holding a small animal. So he did all 3, and he was just like holding a puppy or something. High conversion, got people to send outreach messages and gave them a bonus. And he said, I want you to outreach women that fit this description.
Was he doing this for a laugh?
Well,
Was there any sort of irony in it at all?
I don't know whether
He's
has a sense
American.
of
I doubt
irony.
there would be. Would there?
Yeah, he's. That's it.
They don't do that.
If it was like James Veitch or someone British,
Yeah.
you'd be like, okay, you can see. So basically, he did that.
Andrew Tate. You do.
Oh, I'm convinced Andrew Tate's playing a character.
Oh,
but
he's a parody.
yeah.
That's why I find it quite funny.
Fair enough. But yeah, so they sent out all these messages, and it was like, hello, I'm writing on behalf of Mr. Timothy Ferriss, and I would like you to attend a date on this time and this thing. And he booked out 5 cafes on the same road, 20-minute slots for the date, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, booked in like, I don't know, 80 or 100 dates. And he rotated between the cafes so that he wouldn't have like this awkward crossover
Yeah.
of one date finishing. And he just bashed through the dates and found a girlfriend by the end of it.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate everything about that. That's disgusting. That's going to ruin my day.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Because it's just looking at it, it's like, so see Instagram Reels. I've been coming at Instagram Reels like that, but that's Instagram. That's not finding someone that you're going to live with. That's me trying to make money.
Yeah.
Try to make a living, not try to find.
I really wanted to ask you about this because you have smashed it on socials, and I feel like
Not TikTok anymore because I've focused on Instagram. So
Really?
yeah. Because it's actually different. Reels are actually different to TikTok.
that's interesting.
Reels one theme. So the way you've been talking about things is so random. So you would have to come at it from like, this is a podcast. You get what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it would have to be like, this is clearly podcast clips for a podcast, the way you've been doing it.
Yeah.
It's just so different. Like I've done so. There's a guy called Hey Dominic on YouTube. You should watch his videos. He just breaks it down. He like comes at it like so. He comes at it like Johnny with ads.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the way you should
Hyper
be able to do it.
targeted.
So like everything I'm doing is like, I look through my reel and I go, what the fuck can I take out of that? That doesn't need to be there. And I'm trying to make
Right.
them shorter and concise. Whereas I used to stick a camera down and talk for like a minute.
It's a really difficult one that I struggle with internally, and I feel like you've just fully like made
I just
peace
had to like
with this.
take my ego out of it. That's
Yeah.
because I'd be like, that's a really funny joke, but it got no views.
It's exactly that, and it's like, oh, I have to just play the game. I have to use those stupid trending audios and all
I
that.
don't do that. I just don't
Oh.
understand them.
Makes me sick. But
I'm refusing to do that and dance because I can't dance.
well, like I think we're in safe company now. We're deep into a podcast, so anyone who's listening will have the attention span longer than a
Yeah,
goldfish.
yeah.
But it's difficult because I feel on one hand like it's easy exposure to do the kind of TikTok Reels type
Yeah.
thing, but then because of how simplified you have to make the content, it's like, do I want more of that audience, and do I want to make that audience dependent on the really kind of basic
100%.
explanations versus the nuance and depth that you can get into on a podcast or on a long form video, but that doesn't have viral potential. So
That's what I'm
finding that overlap.
You actually need to sit and really think about everything, because the way I've tried to do it now is, and I haven't made enough podcasts recently. So, because I'm working in person as well now, so I'm doing that on top of this. trying to get enough podcasts, but the way I wanted to think about it was just get people on Instagram or TikTok and get them on the podcast. Like, as in, so my bio now says I'm a podcaster on both of them,
Nice.
even though I haven't started doing enough of them. So if I done this weekly and got a lot of people into that, but like you get seeing a 25-second video, you're not changing someone's life, like, or you're not telling them something that's really going to help them. They need to have watched maybe 30 of them to finally understand something, like one little piece of the puzzle. But if you talk for like 3 minutes, it's not. I've had a few of those videos that have done quite well, but it'll be like, yeah, it's just so much harder. It's just so much harder.
It is. And I think that there's also what we talked about, the conversion side of it, which is a whole different game. And because of Johnny's Spider's Web, we know how many leads and how many customers each platform generates.
Yeah.
And which video we put UTMs, which is like it stands for like urchin tracking metric or something, like a appendage onto a URL, and it tracks where someone comes from. And then you can look at, okay, we're getting a lot of growth on TikTok, but very little conversion.
Yeah.
Versus
TikTok people won't buy.
Yeah, it's good.
They won't buy.
It's crazy. I guess there's a certain character to the type of person who uses TikTok. They're very skittish and very like argumentative, and it's
like
so,
Twitter, isn't it?
Yeah, Twitter people they're a bit more pseudo intellectual. Like a lot of them.
Yeah, they'll slag you off, but they'll use a slightly bigger word. They'll use a few extra characters, a few more syllables.
Exactly. So and then like Facebook is mostly like 50-year-old women, anti-vax, sort of don't share this scam, all that kind of stuff. So
there's robbers in the neighborhood. Knock your door.
Exactly. It's very much like there's a kind of character to each.
Why is the petrol price up again? That sort of thing.
Yeah. And then Instagram is, people. Have you seen Instagram Reality? No. It's a subreddit, and it's basically people taking photos of influencers out in the wild, but from the angles that they're not the deliberate angle of the shot. And so it's quite grim. Like some of them are like, some girl in a bikini like doing that and standing over the edge of like a hotel
I
view.
hate stuff like this.
But you can see the wide angle, and it's like above a shanty town, or like an influencer who's like taking a photo of a breakfast for two, but she's on her own, and she just takes the photo, eats a strawberry, and then leaves. And it's quite bleak, because you think, well, at a certain point, we're gonna only be crafting an image, and there'll be no basis for
I'm quite particular about the way I do social media, so
it's very real the way you
yeah,
you do it.
Like I try not story when unless I'm in my house and it's question boxes. I try I wouldn't like to like story this and be like, oh, Yusef is on the podcast. I'll maybe post a picture, but I wouldn't like to, or if like we go out for lunch after this, I wouldn't story that. It's like the same when my mate comes over. My best mate does this as well, and it pretty much does the same stuff, except he does like more recipes. And we are like, let's not story or anything like that. I don't like the whole vlogging type. So like my content is always, it's about fitness, and then if I'm doing Q&As, it's about fitness, and then whenever I'm out and about with people, I'm not on my phone.
Yeah, well, your whole angle is very much like, I'm going to add value to you. You've come to me with a problem, and this is
because I've tried the whole like get to know me sort of thing, and just like but I'd still be very real. It wouldn't be me on a fucking sun lounger or whatever. Plus, I'd probably get my phone nicked if I'd done that, and I wouldn't be storying anyway. But when I'd done that, I was miserable. Like when you feel like you need to story stuff, it's the worst thing in the world.
There's people who their natural personality really lends itself to that.
I think I'm like that. I think if I storied all the time, like people would find it interesting but I hate it.
Well, that's what's important. Is do you enjoy doing it? Because otherwise, it's not sustainable. Even if people love it. Yeah. If you're like being sick in your mouth when you're doing a story. Hey guys, so here's what I'm having for my breakfast today.
Makes me cringe so much. It makes me cringe so much. I don't know how they do it. Like, see the people that are literally just like making money through ads and stuff, and just like trying to make their life presentable. It's like Casey Neistat when he done those daily vlogs. Do you remember that?
I've seen a couple of his stuff. Yeah,
he done daily vlogs for like something. Paul, do you know the answer to this? Like, and I mean, like, it was as if it was a mini film every single day, because he's a proper filmmaker.
Yeah.
So he would have like maybe 10 sunset time lapses, and you go film them all in one day and from different angles. Or he would like get different, so you bring different cameras, maybe point them like 3 different ways, get 7 different time lapses from them or whatever. Jesus, the maths on there, don't try work out what maths I just came out with. None of them added up whatsoever, but that's what you do.
Yeah, comments like, excuse me, Gavin miscalculated the sunrise. The YouTube is such a grind. It's
horrible.
Out of all the platforms, it's a real pain. But out of all the, like, we're currently focusing on YouTube because it's search based as opposed to feed based, which is a lot of the other stuff. And there is more of a long tail benefit. Like, it's great. It's such a great feeling when a video that you made 4 years ago generates a sale and you haven't touched it since. You know, I remember.
This would be interesting for personal trainers, what you're about to talk about.
Yeah, so the leverage, the power of leverage. And I think what a lot of personal trainers do is they move online and they apply the same model of, oh, right, I'm going to do live Zoom classes. You're doing a live, like, Zumba class or something on Zoom, right? You're leveraging the power of something that has infinite scalability, and you're going to do a live class on Zoom at 7
make
p.m.
it unscalable.
GMT, and it boggles my mind. Like, one of the big things that drove that lesson home for me was 2 a.m. I was asked to do a fecal disimpaction for a patient who had to scoop poo out of a bum. Really
if you never said what that was, I would have had no idea.
really glamorous job. So, you know, double gloved up, mask on, like retching a little bit behind the mask.
Mask on, sniffing it.
And so doing that, being shouted at by the relative, and then I was thinking the whole time, like, this is like £7 an hour effective rate that I'm doing this for. And then I stepped out of the door, checked my email after washing my hands, of course. And I got a Stripe notification for £7.99 for an ebook that I wrote about, like, pull-ups 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was just like the universe just going, ha.
Yeah.
Like, it was like the same amount of money that I was thinking of, but with leverage and something that I hadn't touched since then. And it was very much just like this idea of exchanging time for money in a linear way is non-scalable. And unless you are turning that into some kind of machine, you're just peddling.
Do you know who Mike Vicanti and Jordan Syatt are? Well, you know who Jordan Syatt is. Do you know who Mike Vicanti is? He was just the guy that trained Gary Vee before Jordan Syatt. So he got Jordan Syatt the job of training Gary Vee. So I used to watch him. So I used to do freestyle football for a job. So I used to watch a lot of personal trainers talk about making social media content when I never used to go to the gym, just because it helped me. Because I was effectively doing Instagram and stuff like 5 years ago, but I deleted all my followers when I started this and then started again. So I'd already spoke to a camera and stuff quite a lot. So, but before I started PTing, so about over 2 years ago, I was working in a call center. Whilst I was doing it, I knew I was going to do this. So I basically got sacked from it, and I knew straight away I was going to do this. But I listened to all their podcasts about how to become a personal trainer. The 2 podcasts I would listen to if you're starting PTing or if you want to go online is that one. It's called How to Be a Personal Trainer, and then you and Johnny's Propane Business.
Yeah. So actually, we called it Grow Your Online Fitness Business, and because of Spotify's search, it's picked up quite well on that.
Yeah, so they're the 2 that I would recommend, because, like, if not, you end up down, because my best mate as well. See, he always says if he wasn't friends with me, and he'll hate me saying this, he would have went down the business guru route, because that's the coach. Both of the coaches we went on with were in, and you'll know who they are, I'm not going to say their names, but in these agencies. And it's just to DM me for this sort of like route. And I think that's the worst route to go down. And it's just creating salesmen.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like snake oil salesman as.
This is it. And there's a lot of kind of 6-figure fit pro guru type people coming out. A lot of them, like the biggest thing is like look for proof in the pudding, because a lot of them there's no fitness business to speak of, no evidence of that. And you're like, well, how do I know that that's gonna?
And if your fitness business was doing that well, you wouldn't make the transition.
This is
because you guys haven't transitioned from full on business coaching. You've got it on the side.
We still do the fitness coaching as well. It was just that we were getting so many because through our own mistake, the type of content we put out was very physiology heavy, quite nerdy.
Again, a mistake PTs make.
Oh yeah, like mis-niching, like talking about protein metabolism. It's like the only people that actually care are other PTs.
Are freaks.
We learned that the hard way, because that a lot of the sort of fitness clients that were coming to us were like, oh, by the way, I'm also a PT. Can you help me with my systems to coach my clients? And we were like, well, yeah, okay. And then eventually we were like, we need to just turn this into a product because
Yeah.
it's kind of, yeah. But um, the I guess the big difference with the way that we teach is very much like you have to be able to generate a result for your client to be able to deliver that in a scalable way, but still doing mid-ticket, so 50 to 150 pound a month coaching. A lot of the guru type people will recommend high ticket.
997.
Or
That's like the go-to,
4997,
isn't it?
you know, like
Oh yeah.
£5,000 fat loss packages. And you know that we worked with someone, I'm not going to mention his name, this was years ago, who was trying to get us to do scripted sales calls that are very manipulative. And it's like, it even said on the script, like, tears are encouraged, like try and make them cry, like dig into pain points. And this guy was bragging about the fact that he got a single mother to remortgage her house so that she could afford the fat loss plan. And it didn't sit well with us, obviously, because we're not psychopaths. And
But there's so many of these.
yeah,
There's not just one agency now. Maybe that was like there was only one or two when you done that, but now there's
I'm sure
like
there's loads now. Yeah,
and they've got everyone.
and they're all following the same model, and it's a bubble. It's not gonna work. But it also to follow a kind of manipulative or like pain point based sales script is only going to generate regret clients, and it's not. It doesn't produce repeat customers. You know, if you what we
Your job
discovered-
is to make people feel good.
and to get them
You're
results.
doing the opposite from the very first time you speak to them.
It's starting a codependent abusive relationship. Like and
It's narcissism through coaching, isn't it?
absolutely. And unfortunately, there's a magnet for that personality to do well in those industries as well. But what we discovered is the people who pay mid ticket or the kind of lower end of 50 to 150 pound a month, if you can deliver a good service to them and get them a result, and they've got the support and the accountability, those people stay with you much longer than someone who would have gone for a high ticket thing. And the lifetime value of the mid ticket is consistently higher.
Yeah. I think you guys had a big impact on me with all of that. I don't think I wrote it down and was like, this is what I'm going to do. But I think just subconsciously from listening to a lot of those podcasts, that's the way I've done things.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean? I didn't take all every single thing you said and followed it to a plan, because I'd have had to have been coached by you. But I think I just like subconsciously had heard a lot of the stuff you were saying and was like, that's what I'm going to do. Plus, I always done what felt right as well. I always, because I just wouldn't be able to sell like that to people. I just can't do it. Like, I tried to sell paintball tickets to people in Australia I lasted 3 days.
Oh, really?
I was in like supermarkets, and I just used to have to go up and ask people if they like paintball, and then follow a sales script to get them to go paintballing where they could have just bought the tickets there. And then one day I sold someone a like 500 quid package. That was literally just something they could have bought there for cheaper, and then they had to buy the paintballs when they got there. And do you know how I got them to talk to me? I went, "Lish, do you like paintball?" And then they quit the day after. But I just can't do stuff like that. The full time I was looking at them going, I feel horrific, but my rent needs paid.
It's why I think if you are consistent with the product that you're selling and you're congruent, because you're like, I know that this is going to be valuable for you, and that's why I'm backing this. So much easier to sell something. I think trying to sell like double glazing or I don't know, some product where
something you already have as well, like electricity. It's like
it's pretty difficult to like be enthusiastic about that. Or if you do, it comes at a cost of, what's it called? Like service fatigue or some kind of emotional fatigue.
Not sure
term for it that people get if they're working in like retail or something, and they always have to be like, "Hello, sir, how are you doing today?" And like that kind of maintaining this mask, and then they get home and they're like, "Oh." So yeah.
As well, right? So you do life hacks. Do you know where I think I first saw you? And I wanted to bring this up because I don't think it was life hacks. I think I figured out when I seen life hacks that I'd already saw you. It was, so people kept on saying that your content's like James Smith, and it was doing my fucking head in because I never knew who he was when they first started saying it.
Didn't know who James Smith was?
No, not for like the first 3 months of me starting this, and obviously I found out, but people kept saying it. And then
frankly, I'm insulted by that. No. I think James Smith's a very impressive guy, but I don't think our content's like his.
No, it's not at all. It's just because if you say the word cunt, people are like, James Smith. And then
I watched like 2 podcasts he done, and one of them was with you and Johnny. And honestly, see if you go back and watch that, one of you is like in the background, like just speaking over, just asking the odd question. I think Johnny sat there in the front, and you're just like, and James, what do you think about this?
The old school setup where we've got one microphone like away from us and standing against a white wall.
Johnny, give us that.
Yeah, MacBook camera, terrible.
But that's where I found you, and then I found Life Hacks after that. So I've asked you, so what you do a thing called Life Hacks with Chris Williamson, not a virgin. And
very much not a virgin. Can confirm.
Oh, definitely.
No, but that sounds like he's bummed me. I was like, he
is a shagger. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. Yeah, because he's got algorithms with Tinder, hasn't he? He does. He basically does.
I don't think he even needs to. People catfish him, like people.
Yeah.
As in take photos of him and set up profiles.
Can imagine he is a good looking guy.
He's a sexy man.
But with the life hacks, so the sort of way that you go about it is just things that will help people in day-to-day life. So I want to do 2 life hacks for personal trainers, 1 physical, 1 digital.
Nice.
I know, I've seen it. And then I want to maybe do 2 life hacks for someone that's trying to lose weight, because there'll be a lot of people here that's trying to lose weight, and physical and digital, if you can do it.
Okay. So digital life hack for personal trainers, and we've got a full series on this. We have one on our channel as well that I'm building out too. We've got the fundamentals that I think most personal trainers will be getting good sleep. They'll be using a MacBook. They'll be, stuff that just generally makes your life not a pain. But then in terms of digital wins, see yourself as a knowledge worker, as a personal trainer, because what your goal is, or what your job is to get a client from A to B using your expertise and your knowledge and accountability and objectivity. So you need to start building an external brain. I think anyone who doesn't do that, you still have a system, but it's just a bad system if you have no deliberate system for this. What I mean by this is a set of reference material that you would give your clients if it's like beginner's guide to tracking macros or beginner's guide to squat technique or whatever. And you have all this stuff in one place so that when someone signs up with you, you can draw into your resources and give them the synthesis of what they need to see. So personally, I just use Apple Notes for this. It's really powerful. It's really fast. It's right under your nose.
I've got notes
cross-platform. Brilliant. Yeah, I used to use Evernote, and the company just kind of kamikazed themselves.
I tried quite a lot of these things I just don't like them.
Yeah.
My mate uses Notion, and I just looked at him, I was like, I'm not doing that.
Notion is all right for synced databases and nested stuff, but there's no offline mode, and so that's a real killer.
It's just so good that if you have them, they just bring you in, Apple. The fact I can type something and then just like if my laptop just went over there, I can go on my phone and get it.
It's very hard to beat that.
It's too convenient.
Yeah, definitely. So the thing as well with notes, you've got tags, you've got folder structure, so you can find things very easily. And if you use Alfred, which was going to be my other life hack, then you can access them with a single keyboard shortcut.
Yeah.
So that's really important. You can go down the second brain rabbit hole if you want to. We did an interview with Tiago Forte, who is the kind of pioneer of that at the moment. And he talks about how that fits in the context of being a coach or a trainer. But just be careful, because there are a whole bunch of note perverts out there that just go deep into like the really kind of, they're almost like they just enjoy the process of note taking itself rather than doing it for a purpose.
Yeah.
So big digital.
So that's the digital personal trainer one.
Physical. Let's have a look, because I've got an index here on my brain.
You can look at notes as like a brain dump as well, can't you? As well as like a second brain.
Yeah, exactly. So using notes as a brain dump, because as David Allen says, the mind is great for having ideas, but not for holding them.
Yeah.
And so if you're constantly got like things that are looping around in your head, I need to sort that light bulb out, or I need to get the thing nailed in the fence, and I need to reply to that guy. Like these things are just pulling on your attention in the background. And then when you actually forget about them, there's still the emotional residue of that being like, there's something.
One of the most powerful things I've ever done, and it sounds so simple, is that I was moving back home from London, and I was just overwhelmed as fuck. Like say for instance, my check-ins were too long and I just left it for like 4 months. So every single time I was doing check-ins, it would ruin about 2 days of my life. And then instead of fixing it, I just didn't do it for ages. Then I had to move, wanted to move home because my expenses were too high. And I just had like 12 things on my mind that had to be fixed. And I went down to a coffee shop and I wrote down the 12 things and then numbered them from 1 to 12 of what was easiest to fix. My check-ins took me 30 minutes to fix. I took 5 questions out and then sent a message saying these are going to be a lot simpler. And then like I'm about 30% of my overwhelm went away straight away. I just went, look, your check-ins are going to be a lot simpler from now. And everyone was like, sweet.
It's great when you look at something from a big picture perspective and you go, if I just remove that, that removes half of my headache.
And then I just started going through the things. And another thing was like, I just needed a load more exercise tutorials. So I just went to the gym and filmed them all. Because there was stuff that I didn't want to. It was just, if you look at the 12 things, it was overwhelming. If you just done them one by one.
When you write stuff down, what feels like, a huge burden, you're like, actually, it's, I can see it's finite. It's how many numbers there are, and it's only going to take me this much time.
You got your physical one?
Physical one, I think one of the big ones is to have a clear desk. I know it sounds like a really boring tool, but a really boring thing to do. But if you tidy space, tidy mind, like if you don't have, if you got papers on your desk and loads of things, it's adding to this sense of open loops. Like, get some wire tidies, get a grommet in your desk, like create a place where you can literally just sit down, laptop open, clear your desktop as well. And then you can just focus on really the highest yield thing for productivity is just single tasking, like just doing one thing. And the world is designed for multitasking to try and get you to do, and it feels more productive neurologically when you're multitasking because you're switching between tasks and it feels like you're moving at a fast
you're doing
pace.
Everything terribly, aren't you?
Exactly. So
that was a hard pill to swallow as well when you start this. See if I can reply to my clients, do a TikTok, and then do one other important task, and nothing else gets done. I'm fine with that. But it took me a long time to be okay with that.
Very much.
Like everything else, I'd be like, right, I need to do this, this, and this, and then you just try to do it and you fail every day.
It's the book Essentialism, although it's a bit of a it's one of those things, you see the summary of it and you go, I know that, but actually like internalizing that truth of you giving up the good for the great, as you said there, is key. I've just remembered another physical life hack as well. This is for anyone. Get a pregnancy pillow. Game changer. So
I've still not done that. I've just good. What honestly, to sleep with?
Yeah. So if you sleep on your side, you know how you're scrunched over and like my legs get sweaty, like squashed against each other, and you wake up and you're like a bit kind of, what a pregnancy pillow does is a big V shape, and you just loop it over so you can get it under your neck, spaces your arms apart, spaces your hips apart, keeps you a bit cooler as well.
Right.
And you're just locked in. As soon as you're in bed in that position.
What's your missus say to that?
Doesn't like it.
Yeah,
it creates a divider. So
that's literally like, it's a physical way of her not getting to you. It's like a barricade.
It's a very avoidant strategy in bed. But if you can get them on board with it as well, then you can make a little pregnancy pillow convoy.
Yeah. Have you got a digital one for, just say someone trying to lose weight or trying to, because one of the biggest questions I get asked is like, how do I start? So have you got like a digital hack for someone like that?
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll agree with this one of just get like a Withings or Fitbit scales, the ones that synchronize with your Wi-Fi, because one of the big frictions to knowing, that any goal, am I winning and how do I know? And so if you can make that as automatic as possible, so every morning, post-poo, pre-breakfast, stand on the scales, if you can have something that synchronizes with Wi-Fi and your MyFitnessPal account or whatever, you then don't have to worry about like, oh, what was I today? And for people that have a complex around their weight and they're like, oh, I don't want to keep looking at my weight, fine, you can just stand on it. Don't have to look at the number. That syncs with what your coach can see. And
I don't actually know that about Fitbit skills.
I've got the Withings ones, or Withings, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Right.
But yeah, brilliant. I use Macro Factor now for tracking.
Whose is that?
It's Greg Knuckles.
Right. I knew it was.
So I don't know if you can see that. Oh no, it just looks like a white screen.
Sorry.
It's quite good. You can describe, like, I had meat and potatoes today, and
Greg Knuckles is good.
He's
a
a
lot of those
beast.
guys. A lot of those guys are good.
Yeah.
What's the one that? Because I used to read all their articles, but I'm so bad with all their names. Who does he write articles with? I used to pay for it. Mass.
Oh, so him and Eric Helms
Yeah.
do a subscription
Yeah,
thing.
he's really good. Right, last one. Have you got any sort of physical one for someone trying to lose weight? Don't worry if you can't do this because I know I'm putting you under pressure.
Have a look.
I might even try to think of one.
So it's not really a weight loss one, but slowing your breathing between sets in the gym. I think trying to make yourself as flexible as possible in terms of when you're doing a set, particularly if you're lifting. I mean, lift weights, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like that's a given. That you're going into sympathetic drive, and then between sets, you want to try and bring your heart rate down as low as possible, and then just be able to do that because I think it's a lost skill.
I think for beginners as well, I'll give a physical hack for beginners. So I think the biggest thing that beginners struggle with is pushing themselves at the start. Like a lot of them will just stick to 3 sets of 10 and never up the weight. I think actually asking yourself after every set, did I have a good few more in me? Like did you, or taking the last set to failure. If you're new, taking the last set to failure, just so you can get a feel for what that feels like. Just trying to teach a beginner what near failure is it's really, really hard.
Yeah, most people just don't.
And a lot of people that
train
are
hard
into
enough.
fitness don't understand this. So they're like, why is like not 3 sets of 10 that works? And I'm like, you don't understand who I'm trying to talk to.
Yeah,
I'm trying to talk to Sally, who goes around all the machines and does 3 sets of 10.
some of them.
Yeah, she goes to the chest press and then the shoulder press and then the leg extension, does 3 sets of 10.
It's very difficult to give that kind of advice in a forum like this because you're like, if you say most people don't train hard enough, the people who actually hear that message are probably the ones who are like absolutely
hammering the gym.
knacking themselves in
And
the
they're
gym.
like, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fucked.
Yeah, and like wobbling down the stairs. Whereas if you say most people need to take a deload week once in a while, you know, the Sallys might hear that and be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
sweet. So yeah, it is tough, but I agree. Like probably the majority, if you look around in a usual gym, yeah, as you say, you'll see people taking a set maybe to a RPE 7 or 8.
Yeah.
At most. So
yeah, but if they're lucky, I think a lot of people have like 10 reps left in them. Have you got any more? What's your most recent life hack?
most recent one is,
When was the last time you done that with Chris?
I think 2 months ago.
2 months.
We're due for another one. This is quite a big one, is red light therapy box. So this is
I'm thinking of red light district.
Oh, right. This is something that I've been, and also the nose strips for bed.
Right.
They just widen your nostrils. I mean, I know I've got pretty wide nostrils already, but
I've seen a lot of people talking about this on TikTok.
Oh, possibly, yeah. Just if you feel like you've got sort of breathing problems at night, just give it a try and see how it improves your sleep quality. But red light box, something I've been testing for the last few months. Got a video coming out on it next week, but it's I thought it was a gimmick. I thought all these kind of biohacking devices are like a bit shady, but the reason that red light is different is just the amount of data on it. I had no idea that what we're most, especially living in Scotland, spending most of our time indoors, we're not getting...
Being racist again.
Yeah. We're not getting the amount of sunlight that we'd normally be exposed to. And the light that we do get is blue wavelengths, which is not healing for the body. It disrupts our circadian rhythm, elevates our cortisol.
Downloaded Fuse last night. Is that what it's called? You recommended it. Flux.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
Not good with names like that. So you talk about Alfred, that I called that Harold or something.
Good old Harold. So yeah, flux or blue blocking lenses, these are all things that will really help us to eliminate some of the effects of blue light. And then a red light box is the opposite. It also, like, you can use that in the mornings or in the evenings to kind of reset the balance of the wavelengths.
Can you explain what this is? I'm imagining a red box.
It's a box with lots of red LEDs and infrared, and you shine it on your tissues, and there's different. It's quite a high-powered box. It penetrates the tissues at different rates depending on how close you are to it and the wavelengths that you're using, and it induces oxidative stress similar to exercise. So it's a very similar process to exercise. In the main mechanism that we think it is it increases your mitochondrial density, and so It just helps you to, like, all of your cells to generally perform better. So that's something I'm experimenting with at the moment. I did a couple of blood tests before and after using it every day for 3 months. Squatted in front of it naked to see if it affected my testosterone. It didn't really, like it.
No.
Well, actually, it went up a little bit, but I'm not sure that the effect size was large enough to.
It affected your testosterone.
Well,
How are you measuring that?
just 9 a.m. serum level of total and free testosterone.
Right. Okay.
My
mind is buckled here.
In fact, speaking of which, because I know it's a very hot topic at the moment, like hormone optimization, testosterone and stuff. One of the biggest low-hanging fruit is stop microwaving Tupperware.
So I was going to ask you about this, like estrogen hype you've been on, or like anti-estrogen hype, like criminalizing it. So, like, you're the only person I've heard speak about it. I don't think I've heard any. So, the only time I hear people talk about estrogen is someone from probably school taking SARMs or whatever and realizing that they've got gyno. That's the only time I ever hear people talk about estrogen, because it's a female hormone, isn't it? So what led you on this discovery of estrogen being the devil?
Yeah, good question. So it's a hormone that in normal levels in men and women is vital. It's required for cognitive function, bone density, cardio protection, maintaining muscle mass, like mood regulation, all these kind of things. The problem comes that we are spending so much of our lives trying to optimize our sleep and diet and training and everything so that we can gain muscle and lose fat. And yet there's a big hole in the bucket, which is that our hormonal axis is just being wrecked by all of these environmental estrogens. So what it is, I went down this rabbit hole. I spoke to a guy called Anthony J, who's got a PhD in estrogen and written a book about this. We are exposed every day to so many sources of xenoestrogens, which are artificial things in plastics or fragrances or cosmetics or whatever, that they mimic estrogen in the body. The problem is they are more potent than endogenous estrogen, and they don't get metabolized or excreted in the same way. So you end up with this kind of buildup. And what happens is, obviously, that over time is causing systemic drop in sperm count on a population level. It's causing problems with our sex drive and erectile function and metabolic syndrome and cancer risk, a lot of hormone sensitive cancers. So there's so much downstream health effects from this. And industry is just kind of managing to get away with it. And
do you think everyone knows about it though?
I think industry knows about it,
right?
But because there's no regulation around it and it's cheap, they just.
What are like the top 3 things to avoid?
So plastics, particularly hot plastics. So microwaving Tupperware, having, if you ever had like a bottle of water left in the car in the summer for a long time and it goes a bit squishy, and fragrances. So depends how far you want to go with this. You could avoid all perfumes and cosmetics and stuff, but the easiest ones is things like, who needs scented dishes? Like, what a gratuitous, pointless thing to have. So getting rid, and detergents as well. So even wearing clothes that have been washed with fragrance detergent is enough to affect your serum levels of phthalates and parabens and things.
Right. Okay.
So like these are all stuff that build up.
A lot of words I need to Google here.
These are all just kind of different chemical versions of estrogen, and you can see it if you look on the back of the packet. Back in the day before kind of scrolling TikTok, where you'd like read the back of the shampoo bottle on the toilet.
Yeah.
And you'd always see one of the ingredients was parfum or fragrance. That is what the industry uses as a catch-all term to be like, oh, it's our proprietary blend, so we can't tell you what's in the parfum. But that's where they put all the nasty stuff, which is annoying.
Am I right in saying they're just money savers?
Pretty much. And like they just think, well, because we can, let's just make it smell really strong. And there's also compounds that make the smell carry further. So have you ever had like, the thing that comes to mind is like a group of girls walk past that have all got that really like strong, like sweet floral perfume, and it hits you in the back of the throat, and you're like there's compounds in there to make it carry further. And so the reason I'm talking about this is that there are some avoidable things that you can do, and the highest yield things are to stop microwaving plastic and just get some like Pyrex Tupperware. An example of, have you ever had like something like a tomato-y or curry type thing in Tupperware, and even when you wash it out, it's still a bit stained red?
Yeah.
Because the acidity in that will interact with the surface area of the plastic and basically exchange molecules with that. And so you end up with plastic leaching into the food and the food into the plastic. So
Jesus, I've been trying to follow this and I'm like, I get that. I understand that.
Well, again, it's another hobby horse I went down, or rabbit hole, but it's just...
I can tell, so I was going to ask you on and you were like, let me get this in.
Oh, yeah.
You were like, don't microwave your Tupperware out of nowhere.
Yeah, and so I did that for 12 weeks. I just eliminated as many sources as I could. It's actually not that hard once you make the main substitutions. Just get some like e-cover detergent rather than the Persil or Daz or whatever, and get some Pyrex Tupperware. I just use like essential oils and things rather than perfumes now, and no one's complained that I smell so far, so that's always good. And my estrogen and testosterone levels did normalize after 12 weeks of doing it, and then when I retested a couple of years later, having maintained those habits, it's even better. So there is a tangible...
So it's made an actual difference.
I think so, yeah. It's hard to say in terms of like physique maintenance, because
there's so many other variables in there.
Yeah, exactly. The only way to know is to like fully split test someone, and but I just think it's quite an easy win. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna try that. I'll try that. I don't think I do. I don't do any meal prepping or anything. Right. I think we're gonna end there. Where do you want to go for lunch?
Oh, anywhere you'd recommend?
Nando's. I don't know. I'll try somewhere.
Sweet.
Where can people find you?
Propanefitness.com.
If you're a personal trainer, go watch this podcast or go listen to the podcast.
Oh yeah, so Grow Your Online Fitness Business podcast.
Personal trainers, you need to go listen to that.
Thank you. Yeah, have a look at that. We have a YouTube channel as well where we put a lot of the content across there too. So just search Propane Fitness, like propane the gas. And we are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcast.
And they will be on your page after watching this video.
Yeah.
You will see his face somewhere.
Watch out. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Gavin, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.